What's going on, guys? We're having a great day today, and today we are back with another Gundam SEED video, and today we're going to be ranking every single character in a tier list. But before I get into my thoughts, I want to hear from you guys, so head on down to the comment section below and let me know some of your favourite Gundam SEED characters, let me know some of your least favourite characters as well, and while you're there, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of anime and Japanese gaming content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Alright, so I've got the tier list up here. I actually just got this straight from the tier maker website. I didn't make this up myself, so maybe there are some characters missing, but from what I've seen, what I've looked through, I think generally all of the major players within the series are here. We're starting off with George Alster, who is Flay's father. I guess he has a big role in the series in terms of Flay's character, but I mean, he's literally there for a couple of episodes, so I mean, just D tier for him, maybe. But I'd probably say top of D tier because there's a purpose, but there's just really nothing to his character that we do get to see. Next up, though, we do have Andrew Waltfeld, who I actually really like, especially more towards the end of the series, and as I'm watching through Destiny at the moment, I'm really liking him in that. But in terms of the main series, I think that he provides some interesting perspective early on. He's basically like that Rambaral kind of character who kind of interacts with our lead. He's kind of part of the enemy forces, if you will. So I think he's really good. I do like him. He's got a really cool mobile suit that he uses as well. And of course, it's just like an interesting kind of aura and backstory to him set up in terms of he's the desert tiger and all this kind of thing. So I would say, I think in terms of seed, I'd put him pretty high up in B. I'm going to put him there for now. He may move around, but for now I'm putting him in B. I think he's a very solid character. Next up, we do have Erica Simmons, who is the engineer in Orb, who is kind of working on the asteroid frames. I guess, yeah, she serves a purpose once again. She's reasonably likable as well. I'd probably put her in C. There's nothing overly noteworthy. I guess she helps make the asteroids and that, which are very cool mobile suits, but generally there's not a whole lot to it. Next up, we do have Ahmed El Hossein, who is Kagali's friend, someone that she befriends within the Earth Desert Forces, and he does end up dying, which I guess is a big part of Kagali's character in a way, at least early on. So I would say, I don't know, he's got a decent amount of screen time, so I'd put him in C for now, but he's probably going to remain pretty low on C. Next up, we do have Aisha, who is Waltfeld's partner / girlfriend, love interest, whatever you want to call her. Now, essentially, she is just a love interest. There's really not much else to her character. She seems like a nice person, which I guess is cool as well, but there's just nothing to it, really. And I guess because she doesn't really play much of a role, I think I'm trying to think whether she's not an overly important character, at least with George. It's almost like the first death really in the series that hits one of the main characters hard. So I'd say that he's a bit more important character compared to Aisha. Next up, we do have William Sutherland. Honestly, I have completely forgotten who this character is. I think he is the leader of the Earth Forces stuff. The fact that he's relatively unmemorable, again, I'm going to put him in D, but I think I'm going to put him here. He probably serves a bit more of a role. I think there. Again, I just really don't remember anything about this character, just kind of generic military leader, if you will. Next up, Asagi Caldwell, who is one of the Astray pilots. The Astray pilots, they just kind of exist. There's really don't have any characterization whatsoever. So, I mean, I think she's reasonably likable in that, so I'd put her kind of here in D. Again, nothing really noteworthy about the character whatsoever. Now we move on to a very interesting one, and that is Flay Alster. As a character, in terms of her development, in terms of how much she gets to do in this series, the kind of journey she goes on, she's a very good character. The problem is, I don't like her. She's very self-centered, which I really don't like. She basically kind of leads Kira on in a way, and it was basically using him to keep her safe really and do what she's incapable of doing. But the thing that makes her character interesting is that she really just does not have a place anywhere, and that is evident throughout the entire series, which would kind of sounds boring if you say the character doesn't have a place anywhere, but it makes her interesting because she doesn't feel like she belongs anywhere. I'm going to put her at the top of C. I'm kind of balancing things out. I think as a character she is B, maybe even top of B tier, perhaps even going into the very low ends of A tier. But just because I do not like her at all, I'm going C. Now moving on to Ledone Kisaka, who is Kagali's bodyguard. Not a whole lot to do, but I guess He's in the series a reasonable amount, so I'm going to put him like just behind Flay, I think. Now we'll move on to another Astray pilot in Mayuri Labat. Much like this other person, nothing noteworthy. So these two are basically about the same place in D tier, to be honest. Next up, Miguel Iman, who is one of the Zaft pilots, very headstrong, very arrogant. I guess he has some reasonable action sequences and such. So yeah, I'm going to put him like, I think here. I'm thinking here. Because I mean, the arrogance is, I don't want to say it's likable, but it kind of makes him entertaining to watch. So I'm going to put him about there in C tier. Next up, we move on to Maru Ramius, the captain of the Archangel. I think she's a really good character. Early on, I just wasn't really vibing with her, I guess. But I guess when you see her in the context of the entire series, especially, you know, in the entirety of Seed, where she starts out, where she ends up, I do really like that she's just thrown into this role of commander, and it's very evident throughout the entire series that she is not up to the job, but she does her best, which I can definitely respect. And I think she just goes through great development. Hard choices that have to be made, she makes them, whether they're the right course of action or not. That's up for debate, but I think she's a very good representation of, like, there are good people within the world actually, like, don't just mindlessly follow orders and actually have a brain. Going with first A tier, I think she's A tier. I think she's a really, really great character. Now we move on to Maruta Azrael, Blue Cosmos leader. Essentially, this guy is just a raging racist, and he's unbelievably unlikable, but that is the purpose. He is supposed to be a despicable character that you just hate, and he serves his purpose perfectly. So I think I'm definitely going B, but I don't know whether I'm putting him in front of Waltfeld. I think I'm going to put him behind, just simply because he only really comes into it in like the later parts of the series. If he was in it a bit more, then maybe I would have put him above Waltfeld. But for now, like I said, incredibly unlikable character, someone you absolutely hate. But that is exactly the thing they're going for, and that's why he works perfectly. Now we move on to Patrick Zala. In that similar position of someone that is kind of just despicable, but there is motivation there. He doesn't just feel like despicable for despicable's sake. He kind of feels like he was against the naturals, but he's kind of just gone down this really dark rabbit hole in that. I think he's a pretty interesting character. They could have done a bit more with him in the series. He's really not, like the focus a lot. Obviously he is, because he's like the leader of Zaft and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like he could have had kind of more individual moments to shine, maybe, which unfortunately he doesn't. So again, I'm going to go B. I think I will put him above Maruta Azrael, but that's simply because he's kind of there from beginning to end, and he's obviously like a very big part in the series, especially when it comes to Atherin's character as well. Now move on to Clotha Bua, who is one of the I guess like test pilots for the new Gundams that the Earth Forces have in like the Raider, the Calamity, and the Forbidden, and he pilots the Raider. Pretty much all these characters that we're going to go over in terms of these like newer Earth pilots, we're probably going to put them all about in the same tier, same with like the Astro ones. But I think these have a little bit more characterization to them, and they're kind of just insane when you watch them, which does make them very interesting, like as a threat, and definitely they have entertainment value to them as well. So I think they're in C. I'm going to put them about here, actually. I think they're just like very entertaining. They've got very cool Gundams as well. So I guess I could probably put them all in. So there's another one. Let's have a look. August Savnak, who is the Calamity pilot. I think that's him here. So again, put him there. And then we've got another one in Shani Andras, who is the Forbidden pilot. We'll put him there. And then we can go back to wherever we were. I am completely lost. So this guy, the leader, Lolaha Chandra II. I do not remember this character whatsoever. So, I mean, honestly, straight up, I might even put him bottom of D tier, just because I don't remember anything he did in the series. I think he's part of the Archangel, but that's all I remember. Azalea Jewel, who is the mother of Isaac Jewel. I wish she was in the series a bit more. There's really only one moment that she has with Isaac, but you can tell that she's like human, like in terms of the Zaft forces, because she clearly loves her son. She clearly thinks what she's doing is right and all that. So I think she's a relatively interesting character in terms of that. She's just really not in the series a whole lot, so I think there's nothing like horrible about the characterization or anything. She either goes right at the bottom of C or she goes somewhere at the top of D. So for now I'm going to put her right at the top of D, I think. because I also do like a character design. Now moving on to Eileen Canavar, who I guess is also a part of Zath. I do not remember this character. I'm going to put her like right here, maybe, I think. I don't know. If I'm completely wrong in putting her there, please let me know, but I just do not remember like a thing about this character. Now moving on to someone who I do remember a bit about, and that is Kojiro Murdoch, the main engineer person within the Archangel. Now in terms of characterization, there's not really a whole lot to him, but he's a very likable character. He's very fun. Whenever he's on screen, he's just a nice presence to have. So I think I'm going to go C with him, because like there's not like a huge amount to the character necessarily. But yeah, I'm going to put him behind Flay though, simply because Flay's got more characterization, I think. I'll keep him there for now. He might move up to the bottom of B just because he's really likable. There's not a whole lot to the character, if you will. Now we'll move on to the big one. Kira Yamato, the lead character of SEED. What a fantastic protagonist. Just goes through such a great arc from beginning to end. So much development. And he's also like a very good in combat. You know, we see him piloting the Strike, the Freedom. Very capable individual, but goes through so much shit throughout this series that you've got to feel sorry for him in that regard. I think he's a pretty goated protagonist. I'm actually going to put him in S tier, which should be unsurprising because he's the focal point of the entire series and is a really, really good protagonist. So I'm putting him comfortably there. Now move on to Cuzzy Buskirk. One of Kira's friends, reasonably likable and all that. I'd put him comfortably in C, but I think I'm going to put him about here. Because I think like out of all of his friends, he's got the least to him. Now move on to Lakas Klein, who is I want to say she's maybe one of the faces of Gundam SEED, period. I think in terms of character design, really fantastic. She has some really good characterization as well, especially as we go into the later parts of the series. You really feel like she matures going into kind of that final act, not sequence, but the final kind of batch of episodes, like last 10 episodes or so. You really feel like that kind of sense of maturity and leadership with her. But she's also just someone who is a good person. Like you feel that. Like she doesn't kind of look at people in a negative light, regardless of who they are. And in a war that's basically centered around, I hate this set of people, I hate this set of people, let's fight. It's refreshing and very comforting to have someone who is just good and someone who doesn't follow along with those ideals and such. So I'm putting her in A. I'm going to put her behind Maru. But I think she's still a really, really good addition to the series. And then we'll move on to Reverend Melchio. There's not really a whole lot to him, but again, it just feels like a very kind-hearted person in a way. So I'm going to put him in C. I think I'm going to put him... I'll put him about here. Reasonable character. There's nothing inherently wrong with him, but there's just not really a whole lot to him either. In fact, I think I'll put him like here. There. Comfortably sits there. And now on to Martin da Costa, who is the second in command to Waltfeld. I really don't remember this character a whole lot. And there's bits of him I remember, but generally there's not a huge amount to the character. So I think, again, I'm going to go C. I think I'm going to go behind all the pilots. So we'll put him about here. Because he then does come into like the kind of end bit where you know, the Archangel defects and that, and he joins up with them then. So I liked him there. I thought he was pretty good there. And now we move on to Mirialia Hall. Out of all of Kira's friends, she might be the most interesting. Especially when Toll dies, we go through that whole thing of her like hating, you know, they've got the prisoner and all that kind of stuff. And I just think that whole thing is really interesting. She gets some really good characterization there, especially when Kira does come back and she kind of moves towards that same like idealism that not idealism necessarily, but that same perspective that he has, where we don't want to just kill everyone because killing this person is not going to bring Toll back. And I think there's some really interesting and almost like tender kind of moments there with her characterization. So I'm going to put her in B. I think I'll put her at the back of B, because aside from like that stuff, she's kind of more of a, I don't want to say a background character, but she doesn't have like a major focus. She doesn't have an arc going through the entire series or development going through the entire series. It's more so just a certain part of the series. Now we'll move on to Natalie Bajgurel. I can't remember how you pronounce her name, but essentially the second in command of the Archangel. She's actually quite an unlikable character for a lot of the series because she's very much that uptight kind of do things by the book. You got to do this to be a good leader. You got to make these sacrifices, and there's a lack of humanity to her in terms of certain moments, but you can still tell that there is, and that comes through definitely with her death, like, you know, the end of the series, and I really like that whole thing. Sometimes a death does make a character, and I think that's definitely the case with Natalie. So I'm going to put her very comfortably in B. I'm actually going to put her above Patrick as well. I think the death stuff just really makes up for like everything that she has throughout the series, which I thought she was generally pretty good throughout the series, but especially in those latter parts, I really, really did like her there. Arnold Newman is next, who is a part of the Archangel. There's not really much to him. He's obviously very capable in terms of, you know, everything he's doing within the Archangel. He's kind of the pilot of it, if you will. So I guess he serves a purpose, but I don't know. There's really not a whole lot to that character, but I think because like he's an important part of the Archangel, I'm going to put him at the top of D. Next up, Gerard Garcia, who is the commander of the Artemis, like the big space station that the Archangel lands at pretty early on in the series. I want to say within the first 15 episodes or so. This guy's just like very complacent and arrogant, and he's just kind of a dick. He's going to go in D, but I just don't know where. I think I put him because there's more characterization maybe, and he does definitely serve a purpose. I'm putting him here. Next up, we've got Raul Le Creuset. Very much a Shara Aznavour clone, even in motivation kind of stuff with him kind of being on a side of his own. Every Gundam series pretty much has a Shara clone to some degree. He is still very interesting to watch. And especially when you do the whole big reveal with him and Mula Flagger and all this kind of stuff, just very interesting in terms of like that whole lore backstory kind of stuff. But also you just don't know where he stands. Does he believe in what Zafta doing? Does he believe in what Earth to do? You don't know where he stands exactly, and that's what makes him interesting. So I'm comfortably putting him in A. And I think I'm going to go right at the top of A. Next up, we've got Romero Pal, who is another member of the Archangel. I do not remember this character whatsoever. Comfortably going out the back of D. Yeah, I don't remember there being anything to him. But there's nothing that really makes him insanely unlikable to put him in F or anything like that, but there's nothing to the character. Next up, we've got Cy Argyle. He's obviously plays a pretty prominent role, especially in terms of like Flay and Kira's relationship. I would put him... I don't think he's quite B, because he doesn't really have like those kind of moments that Mirialia does. So I'm going to put him in C. I think because Flay just is more interesting maybe as a character, I'm going to put him just behind Flay. I just feel like we've got a lot of characters in C, so we might need to move this around to make it a little bit more even out. But now we'll move on to someone who I can comfortably put in a position and he is staying there. That is Athrun Zala, my personal favourite character, going out the top of S. Now, these two, I think as characters, they very comfortably sit in S. Both are really good, like, protagonists, really. I guess Athrun is kind of an antagonist. Don't want to say he's a villain, but he is a damn good character. The whole development that he has, you see him at the start of the series, you see him at the end of the series, just goes through such a fantastic arc of just breaking out of this, you know, belief of, like, the naturals are bad, all this kind of stuff. Athrun is such a well-crafted character. It goes through so much throughout the series, much like Kira does. But, you know, I would comfortably say that both of them are, like, co-leads in the series. And I think Athrun is fantastic. Quite frankly, might be one of, if not my favourite character I've seen in the entirety of Gundam. At least in terms of what I've watched. I absolutely loved Athrun. And he comfortably sits right at the top of S tier as my personal favourite character in SEED. Now moving on to Dierke Elsman. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Has some really good development, especially more so like in the back half when he gets captured. Really good there, and like going into the end and that, I just think he's a pretty like good character that, much like Athrun, has some really good development. Obviously not to the heights of that, but I do still think he is really good. Now, I don't think I quite put him in A tier, but I'm comfortably putting him at the front of B tier, just in front of Waltfeld. Now we move on to Mula Flagger, who might be one of the more likable characters in the series, if not the most likable. Hotshot, cool pilot, essentially a Han Solo type character. It's hard not to like this guy. Just everything about him is cool, badass, awesome. You just like this guy. But also, there is a heart to him. There is a humanity to him. Despite the fact that he's obviously like the hotshot kind of person, he's still very humble and looks out for people, you know, understands that, you know, a lot of like Kira and his friends, they're kids, and he's kind of there for them in a way, almost like a parenting mentor kind of figure. He's definitely a mentor to Kira in the series, and yeah, like especially when you get into like his backstories, you know, stuff with his father, his links with Rao. all that kind of stuff. Really, really awesome. Again, comfortably going to go in A. I kind of like him a bit more than Raul, but I think Raul might be the more interesting character. So I'm going to put him just behind Raul, but these are kind of like neck and neck, I would say. Now we've got on to Nicole Amalfi. One of the big deaths in the series, definitely the one that impacts Athrun a lot and a lot of his friends as well. But what I like about Nicole is that he's just a good person. He just feels like a kind-hearted individual, so you just feel sad when he dies. I think I would comfortably put him in B. I'm moving more towards like the back. I think I would go about here because like I think these two characters, just because of how evil they are, makes them interesting. And then Nicole, I guess evil is always inherently more interesting to watch and fun to watch than good. Next up, we've got Isaac Jewell, who I do think has some pretty good characterization actually. This guy is just kind of a dick for most of the series, and even going into the back half of the series, he remains that way. But I think he has almost the biggest turnaround in terms of going against the ideals of Zaft, because he feels like he's 100% like in there, almost to the same degree as Patrick Zala. Maybe not in the same way of like hating naturals and all that, but he's very much like a military guy that's dedicated to the cause. For him to have that turnaround towards the end, I think he's really good. So again, I'm putting him very like comfortably in B. I think I'll go above, yeah, I'm going to go like above Patrick. Sits pretty comfortably there. Now we'll move on to Siegel Klein, the father of Lacus Klein. You kind of got to respect that this guy like he sees the wrongdoings in Zaft. He sees the way that they're going through, and you know, the downfall of them, if you will, in terms of basically becoming a very anti-natural, the worst elements of war and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, of course, he does die in a, I would say, pretty unceremonious death, quite frankly, but sometimes that's what war is. Not everyone goes out in a heroic moment. So I think I would pretty comfortably put him somewhere in C. Probably put him about here. I think he comfortably sits in about in the middle of C. There's nothing hugely like engaging about the character necessarily, but he definitely serves his purpose. Next up, Kaggle, one of the main characters in the series. I would say she's even like maybe a co-lead alongside Kira and Athrun. I mean, maybe not like a lead, but she's almost like, you have your leads and then you have like the tier under that, and that's where she sits. A major character in this series, and really good, really good character who you know, definitely goes through quite a lot in this series as well. Of course, loses her father and all that kind of stuff. Relationship with Kira is good. Relationship she develops with Athrun is great as well. She's just a massive part of the series. Really well fleshed out. Definitely like her a lot. I'm comfortably going in A. I'm going at the top of A, I think, as well. Next up, we got Tol Koenig. A very big death when it comes to certain characters, especially when it comes to Mirialia. And of course Kira as well. His death is essentially like the characterization, if you will, extremely brutal. Like the way that the shield kind of goes in, it almost goes in slow motion. You see his head pop off. Oh, it's brutal. But I think we'll go C. I think I'm going to put him about here. Last but certainly not least, we have Uzumi Naruata, Kaggle's father. I gotta respect someone that just sticks to their ideals, especially when they're good ideals like this. He's a very good leader. And of course, you know, if we go into like the end of Seed, we go into Seed Destiny, which I'm currently watching through. Some of his decisions definitely come to light in a more negative light, but he does the things that he believes to be right. Sticks to his ideals, and you've got to respect someone like that, especially in the middle of a war. So I'm going to comfortably put him somewhere in C. I actually think I might put him in front of these two, so I'm going to put him about there. C's looking pretty heavy. You know, as much as I dislike Fleur, she's a really good character, we're going to put her into B. And then I think that's a fairly reasonable setup of tiers there. So we've got you know, S tier, we've got Athrun and Kira. A tier, we've got Kaggle, Rao, Mu, Muru, and Lacus. I'm not going to go through all these, but you guys get the idea. So there we have it. That is my ranking of all of the Gundam Seed characters in a tier list, ranked from S tier all the way down to D tier. There's no one in F tier, so we're not going to count that. But before I get out of here, please do leave a like on this video. Also subscribe if you're a fan of anime and Japanese gaming content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Stay tuned for plenty more Gundam Seed videos to come. I'm going to have a ranking much like this in the tier list of the mobile suits from Gundam Seed. Then I'm going to have a Seed Destiny character ranking, Seed Destiny mobile suit ranking. Might do the same for Seed Freedom, we'll see how that goes, but of course I'll have a review for that. I'll have a review for Seed Destiny, like a first time watch thing. What other Gundam Seed videos would you like to see in the future? Also let me know your ranking, some of your favourite characters within this series. But as always, thank you so much for tuning into mchat today. I'll see you guys next time.